podcast contains discussions of real criminal cases, including descriptions of violence, abuse, and other disturbing events. Some listeners may find this content too graphic or emotionally triggering. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This episode is not suitable for children or sensitive audiences. If you feel distressed at any point while listening, please consider pausing the episode and seeking professional support. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Crime KE podcast. My good name is Ajuma and I'm a human rights journalist from Kenya. Now this week we get into the murder of Wycliffe Ndeke in 2020. Now the source materials I used for this episode do not specify Wycliffe's age, but he was a teenager at the time of his death. Now this case is so heartbreaking because it involves the death of a young boy in a situation that I think should not have escalated to that point in the first place. To begin the story, let me take you to the morning of Tuesday, 6th October 2020, in a village called Kwang'amor in Teso South, Busia County. Now, that mid-morning, a woman identified as Evelyn had screams and shouts coming from her neighbor's house, so she decided to go and investigate. Now, according to Evelyn's court testimony, when she got to the home, she found her neighbor, a woman identified as Maureen, beating up a young boy using a rungu. She said that she confronted her for assaulting the boy, and when Maureen saw her, she gave the rungu to her 15-year-old son, Robinson, who ran away with it. Now, by this time, Evelyn said that she could clearly see that the boy who was being beaten had a visible injury on his head, so he took him away from them and took him to her house. The boy was identified as Wycliffe Ndeke, and she knew him well because he lived with his grandmother just a few homes away from her. Now, Evelyn testified that at that point, when she took Wycliffe to her house, he was crying and he was saying that he was in a lot of pain and wanted to go home. So she just let him run home to his grandmother. Now, according to his grandmother, when Wycliffe got home that morning, mid-morning, she noticed that he looked disoriented and he was staggering. She said that he got home and went to bed and slept. And she didn't even realize that there was a serious issue with him. She just thought that he was tired or maybe unwell or maybe he just needed some rest. Now, that was until Evelyn showed up and told her about what she saw at Maureen's place. She told her that Wycliffe had sustained a head injury from a beating by Maureen. Now, when Wycliffe's grandmother confronted Maureen, she denied that she had assaulted him and said that her sons had been attacked by thugs. The grandma reported the assault to the police, who gave her a P3 form before she took Wycliffe to a Mukura Health Center for medical attention. Now, the officer who took the report testified that when they came to report the assault, Wycliffe appeared weak and he had a very visible injury on his head. Now, by this time, his condition had worsened, but at the hospital, he was just given drugs and discharged. Now, by the next day, on Wednesday, his condition was not getting any better, so he was referred to the Busia County Referral Hospital. Now, the Busia County Referral Hospital referred them to the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret because he needed a procedure to remove a blood clot from his head, and the hospital was not equipped to do the procedure. Now, Wycliffe unfortunately succumbed to his injury and died while undergoing treatment in Eldoret. Maureen and her 15-year-old son, Robinson, had been arrested and charged with grievous harm. But after Wycliffe died, the charge was upgraded to murder. Now, Wycliffe's autopsy report showed that he had died from a severe head injury, with a pathologist determining the injury to be from blunt force trauma. Now, both Maureen and her son pleaded not guilty to the murder charges, so the prosecution presented 7 witnesses to prove their case. Now, according to the prosecution's theory, a group of teenagers was gathered at the river on the morning of the incident. They were scooping the river sand for use, but before they finished, an argument happened, and it ended in Wycliffe's assault and murder. Now, according to court documents, the argument happened over a radio or a radio battery that Wycliffe had given to one of his friends, a boy identified as Davy, to charge it for him. Now, I should inform you at this point that Davy is Robinson's brother and Maureen's other son. Now, after a long argument at the riverbank, Davy left and headed home, but Wycliffe and the rest of the boys followed him there because the argument was not done. Now, according to testimony from 2 of the other boys who were at the riverbank that day, when they got to Davy's home, they met his brother Robinson. The altercation continued at the home, and Maureen came home to find Davy crying and the other boys there arguing. Now, the boys testify that when Maureen learned of what had happened, she immediately started assaulting Wycliffe and assaulting him by slapping him. She then told Robinson to get her a rungu, which she used to beat up Wycliffe and injure him on the head. Now, at some point, they say that she even gave the rungu to Robinson and told him to use it to beat Wycliffe. And when the neighbor got there, she told her that they were goons who had attacked her sons. The officer who was investigating the case said that his investigation revealed that both Maureen and Robinson injured Wycliffe with a weapon that was never found, the rungu. Now, both Maureen and Robinson denied the charges against them, and Maureen took the stand in her defense. Now, in court, Maureen denied assaulting Wycliffe, and she said that she was being accused because of a land dispute between her family and Wycliffe's family. Now, according to Maureen, on the day of the incident, she came home and found a group of boys shouting as Wycliffe and another one of the boys actually fought. Now, it was at the time that she learned that there had been a dispute involving a radio that had just happened at the riverbank. She said that what she did was she told the boys to go back to their homes, but after they went away, she later learned that Robinson had injured Wycliffe on the head. So, in her testimony, according to her, it was her son that actually injured Wycliffe. She told the court that Robinson injured him while protecting his brother Davy from being beaten by Wycliffe. That was her story, and she was sticking to it. But when Robinson took the stand, he said that on the day of the incident, they were all collecting sand at the river when an argument happened over a radio. He said his brother Davy was in the process of being beaten by the other boys, so he chose to go home, but everything escalated when they decided to follow him home. Now, because when they got home, they also turned on him and began beating him too with his brother. Now, he admitted to hitting Wycliffe on the head, but he said that he only used his fist to hit him, not a rungu as the others had testified. He said that when his mother came home, she only asked everyone to go home. He testified that he had no idea that Wycliffe had been injured and the whole incident was purely accidental. Now, one thing that was clear from his testimony was that he completely absolved or tried to absolve his mother from any blame in the murder. In fact, he told the court that Maureen was not around when Wycliffe was assaulted in their home. Now, after the testimony, the presiding judge found that both Maureen and Robinson were responsible for Wycliffe's murder. The judge said that in his assessment of the facts in the case, He believed that Robinson had been coached, possibly by his mother, possibly by the defense lawyer, in order to take the blame in the case. The judge believed that Maureen was the primary offender in the case, and her son had aided and abetted the offense, especially because there was already testimony that he participated in beating up Wycliffe after instruction from his mother. The judge faulted Maureen for failing to bring harmony when she found the young boys fighting, and he told Maureen that she went ahead and caused injury to Wycliffe instead of trying to bring peace between the boys, despite being the grown up in this situation. And she was almost successful at transferring the blame to her son. So, after a 2-year trial on the 16th of June 2022, the High Court in Busia found both Maureen and Robinson guilty of murder. But the court also acknowledged that the death was accidental because, according to the testimony and everything that had been presented, it was clear that when they were assaulting Wycliffe, the intention was not to murder him. I guess it was to cause him harm or punish him. I don't know. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this episode. You can support Crime KE podcast by sharing this episode with your friends so that we can get a larger community to listen to these cases. You can follow the podcast on Instagram or find me on Facebook at Ajuma Millicent for updates on the cases covered. I have included the podcast contact information and social media pages in the show notes of this episode so that it is easier for you to reach out if you have any feedback on this episode or the podcast in general. Don't forget to give the podcast a 5-star rating on Spotify and catch the next episode of Crime KE podcast in August. We will be taking a 1-month break. So the next episode will be up on the 6th of August this year. So, but until then, stay safe and remember, it is crime with a K.